Kim Jae-Seok lay motionless in the bed, his chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. His skin had taken on a waxy pallor, sweat beading across his forehead despite the cool temperature of the room. His fingers twitched involuntarily against the white sheets. Then a warm hand touched his chest, right over his racing heart. "Sir, your heart is racing again. Please stay with me." The voice was soft, accented, filled with genuine concern. It cut through the fog of his consciousness like a lighthouse beam through storm clouds. Jae-Seok's eyes fluttered open. Through blurred vision, he saw her silhouetted against the window, backlit by Seoul's glittering skyline. Her dark skin seemed to glow in the moonlight, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that somehow felt safe. "Who?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Shh, don't speak, just breathe with me, slow, in and out." He didn't know who she was, he didn't know why she was there, but something in her presence made him want to fight through the darkness pulling him under. 20 of the world's top doctors couldn't save Kim Jae-Seok. They ran every test, consulted every specialist, prescribed every treatment known to modern medicine. But at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, a woman who wasn't even supposed to be in his room asked the question that changed everything. What if the problem wasn't his illness but the treatment? Hello viewers, this is another interesting story. Before we continue, ensure you support us by hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our interesting episodes. The glass doors of Myeongdong Business Tower slid open as Kim Jae-Seok strode through, his Tom Ford suit perfectly tailored, his presence commanding immediate attention. At 40 years old, he was the youngest CEO of a major Korean tech conglomerate, worth an estimated $4.2 billion. "Mr. Kim, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes, his assistant said, hurrying to match his pace. "Cancel it, sir." Jae-Seok stopped mid-stride, gripping the marble wall for support. His head was spinning, the fluorescent lights seemed too bright, burning into his retinas. His heart hammered against his ribcage like it was trying to escape. "Mr. Kim," his assistant caught him as his knees buckled. That was the beginning. Within hours, he was in Seoul National University Hospital's VIP ward. Within days, his condition had deteriorated so rapidly that his family began preparing for the worst. Dr. Park Jin-woo, the country's leading neurologist, stood before the assembled family in the consultation room. Behind him, a screen displayed brain scans, blood work, toxicology reports, a medical mystery that had consumed 20 of the world's finest doctors. "We've ruled out tumors, strokes, aneurysms, autoimmune disorders, and every known toxin in our database," Dr. Park said, his voice heavy with frustration. His symptoms present as neurological tremors, memory lapses, hallucinations, but all our tests come back clean. Jae-Seok's mother, Kim Jae-Jin, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. "Then what's killing my son?" "We don't know yet, Mrs. Kim, but we have specialists flying in from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and Tokyo University Hospital. We will find the answer." But they didn't. Week after week, as Jae-Seok's condition worsened, the medical team grew larger and the diagnosis remained elusive. Consultants from Germany, Japan, the United States each brought their expertise, ran their tests, prescribed their treatments. Nothing worked. By the third month, Kim Jae-Seok was barely conscious most days. The tremors had become violent seizures. His heart rate would spike without warning, climbing to dangerous levels before crashing back down. He spoke in confused fragments, sometimes in Korean, sometimes in English, often making no sense at all. "We're running out of options," Dr. Park admitted to the family. "His organs are beginning to fail. If we can't identify the cause soon." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Grace Nwosu pushed her cleaning cart down the hospital corridor, her blue uniform crisp despite the late hour. At 2 a.m., the hospital was a different world, quieter, dimmer, with only the night shift staff moving through the halls like ghosts. She had been working at Seoul National University Hospital for 8 months now, ever since arriving from Nigeria on a work visa. It wasn't the life she'd imagined when she graduated with honors in chemistry from the University of Lagos, but it paid the bills and kept her legal. Nobody here knew about her degree. To them, she was just another foreign worker, invisible and unremarkable. That's how she preferred it. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant no questions about why someone with her qualifications was mopping floors. Grace stopped outside room 1204, the VIP suite where the mysterious billionaire patient had been dying for 3 months. She wasn't supposed to enter unless specifically called, but something had been bothering her for weeks now. The smell. Every night when she cleaned the hallway outside his room, she caught a whiff of something that didn't belong, something chemical, something wrong. Tonight, she decided to investigate. She knocked softly, no response. The nurse had stepped away for her break. Grace slipped inside. The room was a museum of medical intervention of poles, monitoring equipment, medication pumps, oxygen tanks, and in the center of it all, the man himself. Grace had only seen him from a distance before. Up close, she could see how the illness had ravaged him. He was handsome, she could tell that even through the pallor and the weight loss. Strong jawline, high cheekbones, the kind of face that probably stopped traffic before he got sick. She approached the bed quietly, not wanting to disturb him. His chest rose and fell in an irregular rhythm. The heart monitor showed an elevated pulse, 112 beats per minute. Then she smelled it again, stronger this time. Grace's eyes tracked to the 4-bag hanging beside the bed. Clear liquid dripped steadily through the tube into his arm. She leaned closer, examining the setup with the trained eye of someone who had spent 4 years studying molecular interactions. The tubing looked slightly discolored. The liquid in the bag had a faint yellowish tint that normal saline shouldn't have. "What are you doing in here?" Grace jumped, turning to find a nurse standing in the doorway. Nurse Choi, who always treated her like an annoyance. "I was just..." "You're not authorized to be in this room. Out, now." "The 4-bag. Are you a doctor?" "No." "Then get out before I report you." Grace left, but her mind was racing. Something was wrong with that 4, she was certain of it. 2 nights later, Grace was mopping the corridor outside room 1204 when she heard a crash from inside. Without thinking, she dropped her mop and rushed in. Jae-Seok was conscious but disoriented, trying to climb out of bed. His 4 had been knocked loose, and the monitoring equipment was beeping frantically. Sir, you need to stay in bed." Grace moved quickly, gently guiding him back down. "Get away from me." His voice was rough, panicked. They're in the walls, watching." "There's no one in the walls. You're safe. You're in the hospital." She kept her voice calm, steady. His wild eyes focused on her face. "Who are you?" "My name is Grace. I work here at night." "Grace?" He repeated it like he was trying to anchor himself to reality. "You're African?" "Nigerian, yes, sir." His breathing began to slow. The panic in his eyes receded slightly. You don't look scared of me." "Why would I be scared of you? Everyone else is. They look at me like I'm already dead." His voice cracked. "Maybe I am." Grace sat on the edge of his bed, something she definitely wasn't supposed to do. "You're not dead, Mr. Kim. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing. You're very much alive. But for how long?" He closed his eyes. 20 doctors, 20, and none of them can tell me what's killing me." Grace glanced at the 4 setup again, the same discoloration, the same faint chemical smell. What if she started, then stopped herself? "What?" "Nothing. I should call a nurse." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist weakly. "Please, whatever you were going to say, I'm desperate here." Grace looked into his eyes. She saw something there beyond the fear and confusion of fierce intelligence, dimmed but not extinguished. "What if the problem isn't what's wrong with you?" she said quietly. "What if the problem is what they're giving you?" Before he could respond, Nurse Choi burst in with a doctor. "What is she doing in here? I told you not to." "She stays." Jae-Seok's voice was weak but firm. "She's the first person in 3 months who's actually listened to me." Grace couldn't sleep that day. She lay in her tiny apartment in Itaewon, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she'd seen. The discolored tubing, the off-color of the fluid, the chemical smell, the way Jae-Seok's symptoms seemed to spike after each medication cycle. She pulled out her laptop and started researching. Heavy metal poisoning? No, they would have tested for that. Medication interaction? Possible, but with 20 doctors consulting, someone would have caught it. Unless it wasn't in the medication itself. What if it was contamination? What if something was leaching into his treatment from the equipment, slowly poisoning him while everyone focused on finding a disease that didn't exist? She needed to get back into that room. She needed to test her theory. That night, Grace arrived for her shift with a plan. She brought cotton swabs and small glass vials that she'd purchased from a medical supply store, claiming she needed them for a school project. At 2:00 a.m., during the nurse's break, she slipped into room 1204 again. Jae-Seok was awake this time, staring at the ceiling. "You came back," he said. "I need to check something. Will you trust me?" He turned his head to look at her. "You're the only one who's asked me to trust you. Everyone else just tells me to relax while they run another test. This might sound strange, but I need to take a sample from your tubing." "Why?" "Because I think something is wrong with it. Not the medication, the delivery system. May I?" He nodded. Grace worked quickly, using the cotton swab to collect a sample from the inside of the tubing. Careful not to contaminate it, she sealed it in the vial and pocketed it. "What's your name again?" Jae-Seok asked. "Grace Nwosu." Grace Nwosu. He smiled slightly, the first smile she'd seen from him. "What are you really doing working as a housekeeper? The way you move, the way you observe things, you're not just a cleaner." Grace hesitated. "I studied chemistry in Lagos, but it's complicated." "Chemistry?" His eyes sharpened with interest. "And you think you found something that 20 doctors missed?" "I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right," she met his gaze, "if I'm right, Mr. Kim, we need to act fast, because whatever is in your system is accumulating. Every dose is making it worse." The next morning, Grace didn't go home. Instead, she went to a small private laboratory she'd found online, a place that did anonymous testing, no questions asked. It cost her nearly 2 weeks' salary, but she had to know. The results came back that evening. Trace amounts of a rare chemical compound, commonly used in industrial plastics, breaking down in the tubing and leaching into the fluid, in small amounts, harmless, but accumulating over 3 months through continuous therapy. It would cause exactly the symptoms Jae-Seok was experiencing. Grace's hands shook as she read the report. She had been right, but who would believe her? She was a housekeeper, an immigrant, a nobody. She had to try. That night, she went straight to the nurse's station. "I need to speak to Dr. Park. It's urgent. It's about Mr. Kim in 1204. The nurse barely looked up. "Dr. Park doesn't take consultations from housekeeping staff." "Please, I have evidence that." "Evidence?" The nurse laughed. "Of what? You're not medical personnel." "Just 5 minutes, please. Security will escort you out if you don't return to your duties." Grace felt the frustration building. She pulled out her phone, showing the lab report. "Look at this. The tubing is contaminated. It's poisoning him." "That's absurd. Do you think our hospital uses substandard equipment?" The nurse's voice rose. "This is insulting. Leave before I report you." Grace walked away, her mind racing. They wouldn't listen, but maybe he would. At she entered room 1204 again. This time, she was ready to risk everything. Jae-Seok was in bad shape, his body racked with tremors, his heart monitor screaming warnings at 145 beats per minute. "Mr. Kim," she rushed to his side. "Can you hear me?" His eyes opened slightly, unfocused. "Grace? I found it. I know what's poisoning you, but they won't listen to me. You have to demand they change your equipment. All of it. New tubing, new bags, new delivery system." "Can't breathe." His heart rate spiked to 160. The alarm was deafening. Grace did something she'd never done before. She reached up and pressed the emergency call button, then turned back to Jae-Seok. She took his face in her hands. forcing him to focus on her eyes. Breathe with me, look at me, just me, in and out, in and out. Something in her voice, her touch, her absolute certainty it reached him. His breathing began to synchronize with hers, slowly, painfully. His heart rate began to drop. 155, 150, 145. The medical team burst in DR Park, 3 nurses, a resident. What is she doing in here? Dr. Park demanded. Grace didn't move. She kept her hands on Jae-Seok's face, kept her eyes locked on his. I'm saving his life, which is more than you've managed to do in 3 months. The room went silent. Jae-Seok's heart rate hit 130, still high, but no longer critical. She's right. Jae-Seok's voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. Listen to her. Dr. Park's face flushed. Mr. Kim, you're not in a position to check the 4 tubing. Each word cost him effort. She found contamination. Grace pulled the lab report from her pocket with one hand, still holding Jae-Seok with the other. Industrial plasticizer breakdown. It's leaching into his bloodstream. The more treatment he gets, the worse he becomes. Dr. Park snatched the paper, his expression skeptical, but as he read, his face changed. Where did you get this? I had it tested, independently. This would explain. Dr. Park looked up, and for the first time, Grace saw something other than dismissal in his eyes. This would explain everything. Within an hour, Jae-Seok's room was filled with people, the hospital's quality assurance team, equipment specialists, a toxicologist Dr. Park had called in. They ran emergency tests on the 4 system. The results confirmed Grace's findings. The specific batch of tubing used in the VIP ward had a manufacturing defect, causing the plastic to degrade and release toxic compounds when exposed to certain medications. How long? Jae-Seok asked. His heart rate had stabilized at 95. He was more alert than he'd been in weeks. We're replacing all your for equipment now, Dr. Park said. There was a humility in his voice that hadn't been there before. We'll start chelation therapy to remove the accumulated toxins. If we'd caught this even a week later. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Jae-Seok's eyes found Grace, who was standing in the corner, trying to be invisible again. She saved my life. It appears she did, Dr. Park said quietly. I owe you an apology, Miss Nwosu. Grace Nwosu. Miss Nwosu, we should have listened. Grace nodded, then turned to leave. She'd done what she came to do. Wait, Jae-Seok's voice stopped her. Don't go, please. She looked back at him. His eyes were clearer now, the fog lifting. When he looked at her, she felt something shift in her chest, a warmth she hadn't expected. Stay, he said, just until I fall asleep. I don't want to be alone right now. Grace glanced at Dr. Park, who nodded. She pulled a chair to the bedside and sat down. Jae-Seok's hand moved across the sheet, finding hers. His grip was weak but intentional. Thank you, he whispered. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. I know what it's like to be invisible, Mr. Kim. Jae-Seok, call me Jae-Seok. Then call me Grace. Grace, he smiled, his eyes drifting closed. Beautiful name for a beautiful person. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story and want to see how this incredible connection between Grace and Jae-Seok develops into something neither of them expected, hit that subscribe button. The next morning, news of Grace's discovery spread through the hospital like wildfire. By afternoon, it had reached the local news. By evening, it was national headlines. Foreign housekeeper solves medical mystery that baffled top doctors. Grace arrived for her shift that night to find everything had changed. Other staff members stared at her, some with respect, others with resentment, most with confusion. Nurse Choi approached her in the hallway. They want to see you in administration. Grace's stomach dropped. Am I being fired? I don't know, but the Kim family is here. The administrative conference room was imposing, all dark wood and leather chairs. Seated around the table were people Grace recognized from visiting Jae-Seok. His mother, Kim Hae-jin, his younger brother, Kim Jae-won, and his cousin, Park Min-soo. Also present, 3 hospital administrators and Dr. Park. Miss Nwosu, please sit. The hospital director gestured to a chair. Grace sat, her hands clasped in her lap. First, on behalf of Seoul National University Hospital, I want to thank you for your observant nature. The director's tone was carefully neutral. However, we need to discuss some concerns. Concerns? Grace asked. You accessed a patient's room without authorization, one of the administrators said. You collected samples without medical credentials. You ordered private testing of hospital equipment. These are serious protocol violations. Grace felt her heart hammering. They were going to fire her, possibly deport her. Wait, Mrs. Kim spoke up, her voice sharp with authority. Are you seriously considering disciplinary action against the person who saved my son's life? Mrs. Kim, we appreciate her intentions, but nothing. Mrs. Kim stood, her designer handbag snapping shut with finality. My family's legal team will be very interested to know that this hospital is more concerned with protocol than the fact that your equipment was poisoning patients. How many others were affected by this defective tubing? How long was it in use? The room went silent. Mrs. Kim turned to Grace, her expression softening. Thank you, Miss Nwosu. My son wishes to see you. Would you come with me? Grace stood on shaky legs and followed Mrs. Kim out of the conference room. Behind them, she could hear the administrators erupting into frantic discussion. In the elevator, Mrs. Kim turned to her. You have a chemistry degree? Yes, ma'am, from University of Lagos. And you're working as a housekeeper. It's complicated. Mrs. Kim studied her with sharp, assessing eyes. I imagine it is. Tell me something, Grace. May I call you Grace? Of course. Did you save my son because you felt obligated, or because you cared? The question caught Grace off guard. She thought about those late nights, the way she'd been drawn to check on him, the relief she'd felt when his heart rate stabilized. Both, she admitted. Mrs. Kim smiled slightly. Honest, I like that. Jae-Seok looked different, still pale, still weak, but there was life in his eyes now. He was sitting up in bed, reading something on a tablet when they entered. Mom, he smiled, then saw Grace behind her. His smile widened. Grace, you came. Your son has been asking for you every hour, Mrs. Kim said. He refuses to cooperate with the nurses unless they confirm you're still employed here. Mom, Jae-Seok said with exasperation. Grace, are they giving you trouble? Nothing I can't handle. She handled the administration quite well, Mrs. Kim said dryly. I simply reinforced her position. She looked between them, something calculating in her expression. I'll leave you to talk, Jae-Seok. Don't tire yourself. When the door closed, Jae-Seok patted the bed beside him. Sit, please, we need to talk. Grace sat, maintaining a respectful distance, but Jae-Seok reached out and took her hand, closing that gap. They told me what the toxin was doing to me, he said quietly. Another week, maybe 2, and it would have been irreversible organ damage. You didn't just save my life, Grace, you gave me a future. I just asked the question no one else thought to ask. No, his grip tightened slightly. You saw me, not the billionaire, not the CEO, not the hopeless patient. You saw me, the person, and you cared enough to risk your job to help. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Grace didn't know what to say. In the moonlight, he looked almost ethereal, beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. Why housekeeping? He asked. With your degree, you could. My degree isn't recognized here without expensive certification exams. My visa doesn't allow me to work in professional positions. And, she hesitated, it's easier to be invisible, easier than being the African girl who thought she could be a scientist in Korea. Easier, Jae-Seok repeated, but is it what you want? What I want doesn't matter. It's what's practical. What if I told you that practicality nearly cost me my life? What if I told you that sometimes the impractical, impossible, illogical choice is the one that saves us? Grace met his eyes. There's something building between them that went beyond gratitude, beyond the patient-caregiver dynamic. What are you saying, Jae-Seok? I'm saying, he brought her hand to his chest, placing it over his heart. She could feel it beating strong, steady, alive. I'm saying that I want you here, not as a housekeeper, not hiding in the shadows. I want you here as what? I don't know yet, but I know I feel more alive when you're in this room than I have in months, maybe years. A nurse knocked and entered, breaking the moment. Mr. Kim, time for your medication, the new for setup. Grace started to pull away, but Jae-Seok held her hand. Grace monitors my medication now. Sir, she's not. Grace monitors my medication, or I refuse treatment. The nurse looked flustered but nodded. Grace examined the new for equipment carefully. Clear tubing, no discoloration, no chemical smell. She nodded, it's clean. As the nurse set up the four, Grace tried to process what had just happened. Jae-Seok was basically declaring that he trusted her over the medical staff. He was making her essential to his care. He was making her visible. When the nurse left, Jae-Seok squeezed her hand. Stay, talk to me, tell me about Lagos, tell me about your dreams, tell me everything they tried to make you hide. So she did. Over the next week, as Jae-Seok's condition improved dramatically with the chelation therapy and clean equipment, Grace became a fixture in room 1204. The hospital, facing potential liability issues, had officially hired her as a patient advocate, a made-up position that basically meant she could be wherever Jae-Seok needed her. But something was bothering her. The tubing defect, she said one evening as she helped Jae-Seok walk around the room. His physical therapy, it doesn't make sense. What doesn't? The batch that was defective, it was only used in the VIP ward, only in rooms for wealthy patients. Why would a manufacturing defect be so targeted? Jae-Seok stopped walking. What are you suggesting? I'm not sure, but she helped him back to bed. What if it wasn't a defect? What if someone deliberately? The door opened. Jae-Seok's brother, Jae-Won, entered carrying a briefcase. He was handsome like his brother but with a harder edge to his features. Hyung, he said, using the Korean term for older brother, you're looking better. Thanks to Grace. Jae-Won's eyes flicked to her, cold and assessing. Yes, the miracle worker. We're all very grateful. He set the briefcase down. I need you to sign some papers, company business, board decisions that can't wait. What decisions? Restructuring. With you incapacitated, we've had to make some changes to the leadership structure. Jae-Seok frowned. What kind of changes? Nothing major, just interim arrangements. We can discuss it later. No, tell me now. Jae-Won sighed. Fine. The board voted to temporarily transfer your CEO authority to me, pending your recovery. It's just a formality. A formality that makes you acting CEO of my company, our family's company, and it's temporary. Jae-Won's smile didn't reach his eyes. Unless you're planning to remain in this hospital bed forever? The tension in the room was thick. Grace watched the exchange, her instincts screaming warnings. I'll review the documents with my lawyers, Jae-Seok said coldly. Of course, take your time. Jae-Won turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Hyung, you might want to be careful about who you trust. Not everyone who seems helpful has pure motives. His eyes landed on Grace as he said it. When he left, Jae-Seok's jaw was tight with anger. He's wanted control of the company for years. Jae-Seok, Grace's mind was racing. What if your brother? Don't. He held up a hand. I know what you're thinking, but Jae-Won wouldn't. He's family. Family can hurt you worse than strangers. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Grace thought about her own family, who'd stopped supporting her when she announced she was leaving Nigeria. I am. Jae-Seok pulled out his phone, dialing, Get me Park Min-soo. I don't care if he's in a meeting, now. Over the next 3 days, Grace and Jae-Seok's cousin Min-soo, who worked as the company's legal counsel, dug into the timeline of events. They discovered disturbing patterns. The defective 4 tubing had been ordered specifically for the VIP ward. The order had been placed the week before Jae-Seok's collapse. The supplier was a shell company with connections to one of the board members, a board member who was close to Jae-Won. It's not conclusive, Nwosu said, spreading documents across Jae-Seok's hospital table. But it's suspicious, very suspicious. Someone tried to kill me. Jae-Seok's voice was flat. Someone tampered with medical equipment to poison me slowly, making it look like a mysterious illness. It's possible, but proving it. We don't need to prove it in court. We just need to prove it to the board. Jae-Seok looked at Grace. Can you trace the chemical signature? Show that it wasn't a random defect but a specific contamination? I need equipment, access to a real lab. Done, Nwosu, arrange it. Grace found herself in a professional chemistry lab for the first time in years. Analyzing the samples she'd saved, she ran spectroscopy tests, molecular analysis, compound breakdown studies. After 2 days of intensive work, she had her answer. It wasn't a manufacturing defect, she told Jae-Seok and Nwosu. Someone introduced a chemical accelerant into the plastic compound. It's designed to break down rapidly when exposed to common for medications. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate, targeted poisoning. We need to take this to the police, Nwosu said. No, Jae-Seok's eyes were hard. Not yet. If we go to the police now, whoever did this will destroy evidence. We need to draw them out. How? Grace asked. Jae-Seok smiled a cold, calculating smile that reminded Grace he was a billionaire CEO for a reason. We let them think they've won. The plan was risky. Jae-Seok would pretend his recovery was failing. He'd sign the documents transferring CEO authority to Jae-won. They'd make it public that his condition was terminal, that he had weeks at most. If someone really did try to kill me for control of the company, Jae-Seok explained, they'll get confident, they'll make a mistake. Grace hated it, hated seeing him pretend to be weak again, hated the whispers in the hospital that the miracle recovery was reversing, but she trusted him. Over the next week, Jae-Seok played his part perfectly. He looked frailer, moved slower, spoke less. His family visited more frequently, their expressions grave. Jae-won came every day now, bringing documents, making decisions, slowly taking over every aspect of the company, and every day, Grace watched him carefully, looking for tells, for mistakes. On the 7th day, she found one. She was in Jae-Seok's room late at night when she heard voices in the hallway. Jae-won and someone else. Can't risk another recovery. The 4 switch was supposed to look natural, but she ruined that. What do you want me to do? I don't know, but she's too close to him now. She's making him suspicious. Grace's blood ran cold. She pulled out her phone, recording. Are you sure the chemotherapy drugs won't be traced? They'll think it's treatment by the time anyone realizes. Grace had heard enough. She slipped out of the room through the bathroom, taking the back corridor to Nwosu's office. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. The conference room was packed. The Kim family, the hospital board, police detectives, and Grace, sitting beside Jae-Seok, who was looking much healthier than anyone expected. Surprise, Jae-Seok said dryly, I'm not dying. Jae-won's face went white. Detective Kim laid out the evidence, the tampered for equipment, the shell company connections, the recorded conversation, the plan to introduce chemotherapy drugs into Jae-Seok's system to finish what the toxins had started. It wasn't just you, the detective said to Jae-won, you had help. The board member who'd placed the order was also arrested. It came out that Jae-won had promised him a percentage of company profits once he took over as CEO. Mrs. Kim sat in stunned silence throughout the revelation, tears streaming down her face. When the police led Jae-won away in handcuffs, she finally spoke. How could you, your own brother? Jae-won stopped at the doorway, looking back. For a moment, his mask slipped, and Grace saw nothing but bitter resentment. He was always the golden child, always the chosen one. I just wanted what should have been mine. You wanted it enough to kill for it, Jae-Seok said quietly, and you almost succeeded. When the room finally cleared, only Grace, Jae-Seok, Nwosu, and Mrs. Kim remained. Mrs. Kim approached Grace, taking both her hands. You saved my son twice, once from the poison, and once from giving up when he thought there was no hope. I will never forget that. I just did what anyone would. No, Mrs. Kim's grip tightened. You did what 20 doctors, countless specialists, and his own family couldn't do. You saw him, you cared, you acted. She glanced at Jae-Seok, then back to Grace, and I think you gave him something else too. Grace felt her cheeks warm. Mrs. Kim, call me Hyjin, she smiled. Something tells me we'll be seeing much more of each other. The scandal made international news. Korean billionaire's brother arrested for attempted murder dominated headlines for weeks. But while the media frenzy raged outside, inside room 1204, something quieter and more profound was happening. Jae-Seok was healing, truly healing, not just physically, but emotionally. I spent my whole life building walls, he told Grace one evening as they sat by the window, watching the sun set over Seoul. After my father died, I became CEO at 30. I couldn't show weakness, couldn't trust anyone. Every person who came into my life wanted something: money, influence, connections. Is that why you never married? Grace asked. The question had been on her mind for weeks. Partly, also because I never met anyone who saw past the net worth. He turned to face her. Until you. I didn't even know who you were when I first saw you, Grace admitted. I just saw someone who was suffering, someone who needed help. Exactly. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, tender. You saw me when I was at my weakest, most vulnerable point, when I had nothing to offer but a dying body in a hospital bed, and you still fought for me. Grace's breath caught. His hand lingered near her face, his thumb tracing her jawline. Jae-Seok, I'm falling for you, Grace. The words hung in the air between them. I know it's complicated. I know there are obstacles, cultural differences, the press, my family's world versus yours, but I don't care. For the first time in my life, I don't care about what's practical or logical or what makes business sense. What do you care about? Her voice was barely a whisper. You. Just you. He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, but Grace didn't move, couldn't move, didn't want to move. Their lips met softly, at first tentative, questioning, then deeper, more certain. Grace felt something inside her chest crack open, flooding her with warmth and light and hope she hadn't let herself feel in years. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jae-Seok rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me, he said, not as a patient advocate or a caregiver. Stay with me as Grace, the woman who saved my life, the woman who's stealing my heart. Your mother approves. Trust me, I asked. The media will say whatever they want regardless. Let them talk. My visa. My lawyers are already working on it. If you want to stay in Korea, you'll stay legally, with full credentials to practice chemistry. He pulled back to look at her. But Grace, I need you to want this, not because I'm offering you solutions to your problems, not because you feel obligated. I need you to want us for the right reasons. Grace thought about the past months, the nights she'd spent worrying about him, the way her heart had raced every time she entered his room, the fierce protectiveness she'd felt when people dismissed or underestimated him. I do want this, she said. I want you. It terrifies me, but I want you. His smile could have lit up the entire city. Good, because I have plans for us. Grace Nwosu, big plans. 4 weeks later, Jae-Seok was officially discharged from Seoul National University Hospital. The medical team led by a humble Dr. Park declared him fully recovered, with no lasting damage from the toxin exposure. A press conference had been arranged. The hospital wanted to control the narrative, and Jae-Seok had agreed on one condition. Grace stood beside him at the podium, wearing a professional navy dress that Mrs. Kim had insisted on buying her. Her natural hair was styled beautifully, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked confident, poised, and absolutely terrified. You'll be fine, Jae-Seok whispered, squeezing her hand beneath the podium where the cameras couldn't see. Just be yourself. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, hospital officials, and curiosity seekers. Flashes popped constantly. Dr. Park spoke first, outlining the medical mystery, the discovery of the contaminated equipment, and Jae-Seok's recovery. Then it was Jae-Seok's turn. I stand before you today because of one person's courage, intelligence, and compassion, he began, while 20 of the world's finest doctors worked tirelessly to save my life, and I am grateful to every one of them. It was Grace Nwosu who asked the question that changed everything. She saw what others missed. She acted when others hesitated. She risked her job, her reputation, and her safety to save a stranger. He turned to Grace, his expression full of warmth. Grace is many things. She's a chemist with a degree from the University of Lagos. She's a Nigerian immigrant who came to Korea with dreams that our system told her were impossible. She's a woman who society tried to make invisible and who proved that invisible people often see them most clearly. The reporters were scribbling frantically, but most importantly, Jae-Seok continued, Grace is the woman who taught me what it means to truly see another person, to look beyond wealth, status, nationality, and appearance to the human being beneath. He reached out, taking her hand openly now, for all the cameras to see. Which is why I want to announce that Grace Nwosu will be joining Kim Technologies as the head of our new Medical Innovation Division. She'll be leading research into patient safety, equipment quality control, and diagnostic technology. Her first project will be developing a real-time contamination detection system for medical equipment technology that could save countless lives worldwide. The room erupted with questions. Grace felt dizzy with shock. He hadn't told her about any of this. Additionally, Jae-Seok raised his voice over the din. I'm announcing a partnership with the University of Lagos to create an exchange program for African scientists and engineers. Grace's talent shouldn't have been hidden. How many other brilliant minds are we losing because of visa restrictions, credential requirements, and systemic barriers? More flash, more questions. Jae-Seok smiled and stepped back from the microphone, turning to Grace. Surprised? What just happened? I told you I had big plans. He grinned. Did you think I was joking? Mr. Kim, a reporter shouted. What is your relationship with Miss Nwosu? Are you romantically involved? The room went silent, waiting. Jae-Seok looked at Grace, a question in his eyes. She had a choice. She could let him deflect, keep things professional and safe, or she could step into the light completely. Grace took a breath and leaned toward the microphone. Yes, we are. The room exploded again, but Grace didn't care. She was looking at Jae-Seok, who was looking at her like she'd just given him the greatest gift imaginable. He pulled her close, right there in front of everyone, and kissed her, not a chaste, professional peck, a real kiss, the kind that said everything words couldn't. When they finally broke apart, the press conference had devolved into chaos. Nwosu was trying to restore order. Dr. Park looked faint. Mrs. Kim, sitting in the front row, was dabbing her eyes and smiling. Well, Jae-Seok said in Grace's ear, I think that went well. Grace laughed a real, full, joyous laugh. You're insane. About you, absolutely. The rooftop of Kim Technologies headquarters offered a stunning view of Seoul's skyline. The city sparkled below, a sea of lights stretching to the horizon. Grace stood at the railing, wearing an elegant emerald green gown. The evening air was cool, but she barely noticed. Behind her, the sound of a string quartet drifted from the rooftop garden where Jae-Seok had arranged a private dinner. You're thinking too hard again. Jae-Seok's voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. I can see the gears turning. I'm thinking about how different my life is now. Different good or different bad? Different miraculous. She turned in his arms to face him. 6 months ago, I was invisible. Now I'm heading a research division, publishing papers, speaking at conferences. My family actually called to congratulate me. They came around. My mother cried, said she was sorry for doubting me. Good. They should be proud. I'm certainly proud of you. He kissed her forehead. Your contamination detection system is going to change medical care globally. 3 hospitals are already implementing it in trials. It's not just my system, the whole team. Grace, he tilted her chin up, take the credit, own your brilliance. That's an order from your boss. She smiled. My boss is biased. Extremely biased, hopelessly biased. He pulled her closer. Did I mention you look breathtaking tonight? You might have mentioned it twice. Not enough. You look breathtaking, stunning, like you walked out of my dreams and decided to give me a heart attack. That would be ironic, given how we met. Dark humor. I love it. He spun her slowly, dancing even though the music was faint up here. Do you remember what you said to me that first night when I was having the episode? I said a lot of things. You said, "You're not dead, Mr. Kim. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing. You're very much alive." He stopped dancing, holding her still. You were right, but I wasn't really living until I met you. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. Jae-Seok. I was existing, building wealth, managing companies, making deals, but I wasn't living. You taught me the difference. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box, which is why I want to spend the rest of my life actually living with you. Grace's hands flew to her mouth as he opened the box. The ring inside was stunning, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Sapphire because your favorite color is blue, he explained. Platinum because you're stronger than gold, and diamonds because, he smiled, because even diamonds aren't as brilliant as you. That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said. I'm just getting started. Wait until you hear my vows. He took the ring out, holding it ready. Grace Nwosu, you saved my life. You changed my life. You are my life. Will you marry me? The tears were flowing freely now. Yes, yes, of course yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. When they finally broke apart, Grace was laughing and crying simultaneously. Your mother is going to have opinions about wedding planning. Undoubtedly, Nwosu has already started a betting pool on how many cultural traditions she'll try to incorporate. What did you bet? All of them. She's going to want Nigerian and Korean traditions, probably throw in some Western elements, and create new fusion traditions we haven't even thought of yet. He grinned. It's going to be chaotic and beautiful, like us. Grace looked down at the ring on her finger, then up at the man who'd changed everything. 20 doctors couldn't save you. But you did. You saw what they couldn't see. You asked what they didn't think to ask. You cared when caring seemed pointless. He cupped her face in his hands. You didn't just save my body, Grace. You saved me, all of me. They stood there on the rooftop, the city of Seoul glittering around them, two people from different worlds who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. Come on, Jae-Seok said, taking her hand. Dinner's getting cold, and I had them make Nigerian jollof rice and Korean bulgogi. Nwosu said it was impossible, which meant I had to make it happen. How does it taste? I have no idea, but we're going to find out together. As they walked back toward the garden, hand in hand, Grace thought about the journey that had brought her here, from Lagos to Korea, from invisibility to prominence, from loneliness to love. She'd come to Korea with a degree and a dream, only to have both dismissed. She'd taken a job as a housekeeper, convincing herself that survival was enough. But survival wasn't enough. Living was what mattered. And now, finally, she was living. Hey, Jae-Seok stopped suddenly. I forgot something. What? He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of her with the ring, the Seoul skyline behind her. For our kids, someday, when they ask how we got engaged, I want to show them how beautiful their mother looked when she said yes. Kids? Grace raised an eyebrow. Negotiable, but I'm thinking 3, maybe 4, we could. She kissed him to stop the planning, one step at a time. CEO Kim. Fair enough. He kissed her back. But you're stuck with me now. No returns, no exchanges. Good thing I don't want either. The Seoul Medical Innovation Conference was the largest gathering of medical professionals in Asia. Grace stood backstage, adjusting her microphone, preparing to give the keynote speech. Nervous, Jae-Seok asked, appearing beside her. Terrified, there are 5,000 people out there, and they're all here to see you, the woman who revolutionized medical equipment safety. He straightened her collar. The woman who's being considered for the Seoul Science Award, the woman who's 8 weeks pregnant with our first child. Grace's hand went instinctively to her still flat stomach. They'd only found out a week ago. Don't remind me, I'll throw up from nerves or morning sickness. Not helping, he laughed and kissed her. You're going to be brilliant, just like always. The stage manager called her name. Grace took a deep breath and walked out into the lights. 5,000 faces looked back at her. Medical professionals, researchers, students, journalists. 1 year ago, she'd been invisible to this world. Now, she was leading it into the future. Good afternoon, she began. My name is Grace Kim, and I want to tell you a story. It's a story about how 20 of the world's best doctors couldn't solve a medical mystery and how a housekeeper with a chemistry degree asked one simple question that changed everything. As she spoke, her eyes found Jae-Seok in the front row. He was watching her with absolute pride, his hand resting over his heart, the heart she'd saved, the heart that now beat for her. She smiled and continued her speech, telling their story, sharing the lessons she'd learned, inspiring the next generation of medical innovators. After the speech, during the standing ovation, Jae-Seok met her at the side of the stage. You were perfect, he said. I had good material. She took his hand. Come on, Mom scheduled another wedding venue viewing. Which number is this? 7. She's determined to find the perfect place. There is no perfect place. Wherever you are is perfect. Grace groaned. You're doing the cheesy thing again. I warned you, it only gets worse from here. They walked out of the conference center together into the Seoul afternoon. Behind them, the medical world was buzzing about Dr. Grace Kim's revolutionary work. Ahead of them, a life together full of love, chaos, challenges, and joy. Hey Grace, Jae-Seok said as they reached the car. Yeah, thank you, for that night, for every night since, for saying yes, for everything. She kissed him, right there on the busy Seoul street. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for making me believe I could be more. You were always more, you just needed someone to notice. They got in the car, heading toward whatever came next: wedding planning, parenthood, research breakthroughs, new adventures. Behind them, Seoul National University Hospital stood tall, the place where their story began, where a housekeeper had saved a billionaire's life, and in doing so, had saved herself. 20 doctors couldn't save Kim Jae-Seok, but Grace Nwosu did, and in the end, they saved each other. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or made you believe in the power of seeing people for who they truly are, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what part of Grace and Jae-Seok's journey resonated with you most. And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this, stories that celebrate love across cultures, challenge invisibility, and prove that sometimes the most unlikely hero is exactly who we need. These stories need to be told. Your subscription helps us create more content that matters, that inspires, that reminds us all that we're capable of extraordinary things when we dare to see and be seen. What did you think of Grace's journey? What would you have done in her position? Share your thoughts below, and remember, you never know whose life you might save just by paying attention, asking the right question, and choosing courage over comfort. Until next time, keep seeing people, keep asking questions, keep believing in the impossible, because as Grace and Jae-Seok proved, love, courage, and truth can triumph even when 20 experts say there's no hope.